Okay, yeah, exactly. For those who don't know, Dole was created in 1851. We operate in over 90 countries worldwide, 76,000 employees, and we work with around 90,000 smallholders in these countries. We are still the largest producer of fruit and vegetables, even though we sold our operation in Asia last week. And this is the joint venture with Levi's. This is where the leader in nutrition education and research. So we'll talk about it later. I'm going to concentrate today in one of our operations. This is our operation in Latin America, and these are the banana operations in Latin America. We are well known for the bananas, but we have many other products. And I'm going to be talking about, where is Costa Rica? This is my country. So I'm going to be talking about Costa Rica and the project that we are conducting in Costa Rica. So in year 2007, the Costa Rican government decided to make a commitment to become carbon neutral by 2021. And Dole signed an agreement with the government to help the government to meet this goal towards the sea neutrality. So the first step of this commitment was conducting a carbon footprinting. So we did a carbon footprinting from raw materials up to retail shelf here in Germany. And we got some interesting information from this carbon footprinting that was actually certified by TÜV. So we got numbers. Of course, we could identify some hotspots. Clearly, ocean freight was was the most important hotspot. Then we could go into a deeper level of detail, and then we could identify other hotspots. And this allows us to work on some reduction initiatives. So we have, for example, the use of precision agriculture and controlled release fertilizers to reduce the amount of nitrogen that we apply to the soils. And this is an important reduction in terms of greenhouse gases. Something very, very easy, giving driving techniques to our employees and supply chain. We allow to reduce 10% the use of fuel. And then the use of maximization of the railroad in Costa Rica, which reduced over 30% the use of fuel also, inland transportation. But that was just one exercise, and then we decided to collaborate with a nationwide project in Norway. So we collaborated with Oswald Research. I think some of you know Oswald. They have been here in this conference before. And we run other analysis, other scenarios, which allow us to identify other hotspots and see the footprinting from other perspectives. So we made different scenarios. So we have Norway and Germany now. We have different kind of ocean freight methods. So pallet vessels, pallet boats, container boats, and different system boundaries, cradle to gate, and cradle to retail. So this was interesting. Then using this information, of course, we can work on different alternatives for our transportation, not only the roads, but also the type of vessels that we're using. But, Jesus, I only have 4 minutes. I have a lot of time. But actually, the main question here is, now that we have carbon footprinting of our bananas, what do we do with that? And here's where this exercise becomes interesting. And I think it is important to remember that we have different stakeholders in this equation. So we have clients, that in my case are the retailers, supermarkets, and they're probably very interested in knowing about our greenhouse gases emissions. But there are other stakeholders, like for example the government, who are probably, like in the case of Costa Rica, interested to know not only the carbon footprinting, but how I'm going to compensate that carbon footprinting. We have NGOs that would like to know what we are doing with those numbers. Academia, who probably is more interested in knowing talking about the methodology that we're using, industry, and probably the industry is more interested to know what kind of initiatives they can put in place in order to reduce the carbon footprint, and not necessarily the amount of the grams of CO2. And finally, the consumer. Not finally, sorry. The consumer probably doesn't know what to do with those numbers. It's up to us to educate them. And of course, we have the company itself, who's interested to better understand the processes and see what can we do in order to improve those processes and be more sustainable. And I think this is a very interesting question. Is being active an option when we talk about carbon footprinting? I guess if you are a smallholder, probably the answer is yes, because you're not having all the pressure from these stakeholders that I mentioned before. However, if you are a bigger player, the answer is definitely no. First of all, how can we improve if we do not understand our operation? So we definitely need to understand where are your hotspots. Then you have the pressure of some public initiatives, and we heard today, the last 2 days, some initiatives like the initiative that is being implemented in Japan, or the French initiative. I mentioned before the reason why we jump in Costa Rica, this commitment of the government, and kind invitation to participate in this project. Then we have some industry initiatives that also looking into these methodologies and how to calculate and how to improve. So we have, for example, the Sustainability Consortium in the United States, which is becoming more and more important. And of course, we have market pressure. Market from the consumers. So we have consumers that really want to know what is going on. And then we have clients, again, retailers, that are increasingly demanding about what you are doing. And I just want to share a couple of shots that I prepared last week. This is summarizing some questionnaire self-assessments and surveys that we receive from different clients. Just 32 questionnaires, but I think it can give us a good idea of what is going on, what kind of information we need to provide to our clients. So these are the main sections of these questionnaires. So as you can see here, labor rights and environmental footprint as sections are the two most important ones. But then if we go into a higher detail, and sorry, I know the font is very, very small. You're not going to be able to see it. But actually, these three there are sustainable. Let me see if I can see it. Yeah. So energy use. This is energy use. Carbon footprinting. So we have a lot of questions about carbon footprinting. And then we have some questions about renewable energy. So if you add these three, this is real carbon footprinting, what we're talking about. So we can clearly see that is the most important criteria in the questionnaires that these companies, like Dole, probably Danone, and many others, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, even if they also send questionnaires, receive in this kind of questionnaires. So there's no option. I mean, we have to be there. We have to do it. We have to respond. It is important. It's clearly a demand from the market. Having said that, we cannot forget that carbon footprinting is just one component of the whole equation. I mean, this is, we're talking here about just one single thing, carbon footprinting, but we have many other things. And I just mentioned 4 here. Oh, wow. I just mentioned 4 here. Have 9 minutes. So when we talk about climate change, we have other very important lines like soil health, for example, or we talk about water footprinting, biodiversity, and others. They're all interrelated. You cannot talk about carbon if you don't talk about soil. You cannot talk about soil if you don't talk about water. So we cannot forget about it. And in order to do this, we collaborate with many other organizations. we participate in many projects where we see all these other components. We assess these components in different projects. Finally, they asked me to talk about the smallholders and how to work on carbon footprinting in developing countries. And this is a very complicated question, but I would like to give my personal opinion. Smallholders will participate only if they see the benefit. If they don't see the benefit, they will not participate actively. We have to remember that reduction initiatives are normally implemented by smallholders. And it's not because they want to reduce their carbon footprinting, it's because it's cost-based. They want to reduce an energy bill. They want to reduce the amount of fertilizer they use, and not necessarily because they want to be friends of the earth. It's because they want to reduce their cost, and this is, we cannot forget about it. Adaptation is critical in agro-sector, but most growers do not need to measure the carbon footprinting to realize that. You just need to see the droughts, you just need to see the heavy rainfalls in shorter periods to realize that there's a problem there, and they know it. Of course, measuring is important in order to understand what is going on. Mitigation is normally expensive, and producers do not get payback. So when we talk about mitigation, compensation, it is very tricky. I mean, it will work only if the added value is recognized by retailers and by consumers. So what do we need? I think we need consumers and retailers more demanding, and not only demanding, but they should recognize more sustainable products. Education, capacity building, that's critical. We need to educate developing countries. We need to educate the farmers on these particular issues. Governments should promote technology and low carbon energy and provide tools to the growers if they want this to happen. And finally, the discussion should not be optional. I mean, we shouldn't ask whether we participate or not participate. I mean, I think this is clear, and we have to make it clear for everybody. So I guess that if we have all this together and many other recommendations, I'm sure, out there, yeah, it is possible to make a nice story out of carbon footprinting in developing countries. And 12 minutes. Thank you. Yeah.